far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another 100 ABC Fireside Chat sponsored by Toronto Dominion, UBC Build, and the Elementary Teachers of Toronto. My name is Marie Clark Walker, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion on artificial intelligence and online security with a focus on employment and jobs. My guests today are experts in their own right who will speak to the various aspects of artificial intelligence and the impact on jobs and community. Today, I'm joined by Ehi Agbonlahor. Ehi is a product manager with TD's Layer 6. It's TD's Layer 6 AI. It's a lecturer and also a lecturer at University of Toronto, the Masters of Mathematical Finance program, an entrepreneur and thought leader shaping the future of work. She brings 15 years of career experience across fintech, innovation, agriculture, education, and emerging technologies. She's also the founder of Anusio, an AI powered career guidance and development platform for students and professionals. Welcome, Ahi. We also have with us today Daisy Wright. Daisy is an award winning executive career coach, best selling author, and founder and chief encouragement officer. I love that. Chief encouragement officer at the Right Career Solution. She partners with emerging women leaders and mid career professionals as they gain career clarity. Her specialties include career transition coaching, interview coaching, executive resume development, and LinkedIn profile enhancement. She is passionate about women's issues and is the architect behind the Let's Grow Project initiative and a 2024 100 ABC Woman honoree. Another 2024 honoree is also joining us today, Rosemary Powell. Rosemary is the executive director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network, co-founder of the Canadian Building Diversity Institute, and president of Big on Green. With over 20 years of advocacy for social, economic, and environmental justice, and she says 20 years, but it's actually more. She has driven equitable policy development at all levels of government, notably through the advancement of community benefits agreements in policy and practice. Welcome all. Welcome. I am very excited to get started and hear from all three of these fabulous women. Let me also remind you just before we begin that you can add your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will get to as many of them as we possibly can. So, you may or may not know that Canada is a global leader in AI talent. In 2023, we had more than 140,000 AI professionals, and I know that in 2025 that has grown exponentially. AI is definitely shifting the landscape as it pertains to the world of work. We have some who are very excited about it and what it can do, and many who are concerned about job loss and its overall impact on the workforce and community. Today, we're going to look at various aspects of AI as it pertains to employment and the world of work. We're going to try to demystify some of the notions and look at ways workers can protect themselves, maintain that human connection, and embrace the changes. So, let's begin. Let's begin with Ahi. Ahi, how is artificial intelligence redefining what it means to be employable in today's job market?
Thank you very much, Marie. And I'm excited to be here today. So, if you recall, a few years back, the talk in the industry was around digital literacy, digital transformation. But as of today, that is just the baseline, that's the basics. It's now AI literacy. AI literacy has become the new differentiator. So, essentially, in today's job market, everyone needs to understand some basics about what is AI. How does it work? How does it work in my industry? How does it work in other industries? And how can the insights from those other industries be applied in a creative and innovative way for my own job role? So essentially, things around how to prompt AI tools effectively is something everybody needs to know how to do, irrespective of what role you're in, or how to evaluate the outputs that an AI tool would give you for a specific task or a specific job role. So let's take, for example, if you're in customer service, right? And if your company has deployed an AI tool, you should be able to prompt it effectively in a way that it gives you the most relevant responses that improves how fast you attend to customers in a correct and accurate way. So that's one of the ways that AI is being a differentiator. Just understand it, and I think people need to stop being afraid of it. I'll give a basic analogy. If we Most people use dishwashers, right? You understand how a dishwasher works, and I've seen people do creative things with their dishwashers. It's because you understand the various functionality and how it can apply to your own unique needs. That's why you can be creative in using it to solve your own problem. Same thing applies with artificial intelligence. What is it? How does it work? What are the different dimensions to it? If I'm in manufacturing, construction, finance, how do those different dimensions of artificial intelligence apply to my work or apply to the company where I work? That would start your mind to what else should you be doing? What else should you be doing to prepare? Another thing that's also really important is employers are now emphasizing skills a lot more than just degrees. That's not to say degrees are not still important, they are important, but you need to be able to show that you have the skill set beyond just the fact that you went to school and you graduated with a degree. And in addition to that, being able to show just means having projects, not just one project, but having a portfolio of projects. So we were speaking earlier behind the scenes around um, people being able to find opportunities outside of work. You might be in
Mhm.
a role where you might have taken a micro credential or certification, but your current role does not provide you with the opportunity to actually apply it. Well, I always preach to my community and my audience, create those opportunities. Find opportunities outside of your work to experiment, to apply those things that you've learned in real time. There's so many community organizations, not for profit, startups that are looking for support. That is your low risk experimental ground to upskill yourself. So combine your transferable skills from whatever informal work you're doing, add on micro credentials, add on projects, and be visible. Start sharing your knowledge. Talk about what you're doing. And lastly, the bar for human value is rising.
Mhm.
Essentially, AI is taking on a lot more of the hard skills. AI can now do data entry, it can summarize articles, it can create content. But the value that you bring as a human being is your empathy, your ability to connect with other people, your ability to exercise judgment, to be innovative, to be ethical, to show leadership, to be able to influence decision even though you're not in power. Those are skills that an AI today is not going to replace them, or even in the near future, that every professional, every individual needs to start building up on being able to communicate clearly, being able to create a movement, influence decision, be a leader, even when you don't have the title.
Perfect. And that leads us right into the next question for Daisy. Daisy, AI is transforming many industries by automating repetitive tasks and enhancing efficiency, but it's also leading to job displacement in some sectors. How should we be thinking about these changes in the world of work today?
So, first of all, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for giving up your Sunday afternoon to listen to us talk about AI. So, the first thing I would say, Rosemary, is that AI is a job creator and it's also a job disruptor. And we have seen, as A alluded to, we have seen AI making processes more efficient, from bots handling customer service to AI-driven analytics, optimizing business decisions. But while that's exciting, the reality is that automation is raising a lot of concerns about job displacement, particularly in roles that rely heavily on repetitive tasks. So, what I would, the key though, is to understand that AI isn't just replacing jobs, it's changing them. Some tasks are being automated, yes, but new opportunities are also emerging for people who know how to work with AI, how to adapt, and how to upskill. And I know A covered a lot of it, but I want to go back to the I always think in terms of the movie Hidden Figures. When that Jackson lady realized that computer
Karen
was
Jackson.
coming on stream, she didn't sit back and say, "Oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me?" She went to the library, she learned about Fortran, and she was at nights, she would be in the NASA's office, training and learning how to do that. When they realized that, they said, "Oh, okay. come with me and, and not only did she do that, but she helped to upskill her own staff. So when they wanted to move her by herself, she said, no, take all of us. And there's a bigger picture to this is that
Mhm.
we all have to help each other. So yes, some of us are afraid of AI. We think, oh my goodness, it's going to take over my job. But those of us who have a little bit more knowledge or who are keen on getting a better understanding of how it works, we should be teaching the others who are afraid. We should be embracing the technology rather than hiding. As it's in Star Trek where Borg said, resistance is futile. So it doesn't make sense. We're going to resist it. So we just go with it. We have to be cautious because a lot of things are involved in terms of, well, who is developing these tools and are they including people like us? So we have to think about that. But at the same time, it's best that we embrace it and see what happens. And, later on, we'll have much more to talk about on that.
And you're always going to have unscrupulous people, employers, et cetera, that will take advantage of that and get rid of their human staff. But again, that's not that we're not trying to focus on that today. Rosemary, when we think of construction, we don't think of artificial intelligence. At least a lot of us don't think of artificial intelligence. However, it is being used in urban planning and construction. What goals are you trying to achieve with AI in urban planning and construction? And what are the potential risks or benefits that you are seeing as you engage in your community organizing work?
Thank you very much for that question. And yeah, resistance is futile. I do agree, Daisy. And I really want to know what are some of those things that people are using dishwashers and adapting it.
Mhm.
So do not leave this conversation without giving me some good ideas, okay? Oh my gosh. Yeah, as Mary Clark, as it pertains to construction and just our general everyday lives, technology is an integral part of our lives. We cannot run away from it. It's here now and into the future, and including in construction. On many job sites, predictive maintenance systems are analyzing data from machinery to detect wear and tear before breakdowns happen, saving time and money. And we know in construction, it's all about saving time, money, and of course, safety. So safety is another key area. AI-powered cameras and sensors can instantly detect hazards, such as workers entering restricted zones or equipment operating unsafely, helping prevent accidents in real time. AI is also transforming project planning. By analyzing thousands of past project data points, it can identify scheduling risk and suggest more efficient ways to allocate labor and resources. And in our training programs at TCBN, and in collaboration with our partners like the Dream Legacy Foundation and the Afro-Canadian Contractors Association, we use virtual reality to expose participants to 32 different construction trades, so that they can get some experience prior to being able to get onto the job site. And that within the construction industry, it's really challenging, and there's lots of safety risk in terms of getting new construction workers on a job site. We want to do the work in training and developing them first, before they actually get that real life experience. And so it's been working really well. And at work at TCBN, I encourage staff to take advantage of AI and social media to help our communities share counter narratives and organize campaigns for CBAs. We're a small but mighty team. And yes, because of our network of, over 120 member organizations and groups that are doing their organizing on the ground in their own neighborhoods. And I remember we started out, 8 years ago when I started TCBN with 350 people in our database. And it's only through taking advantage of the wonderful network of supporters and allies that we have in our community, labor, and industry partnerships, but also using more marketing and communication tools and taking advantage of AI and social media that allows us to be able to do that work, because community benefits organizing is not sexy and government doesn't fund it. And so we need every tool that we can use in our belt to be able to make the kinds of impacts that we're looking to achieve. So for me, I look at new technology through the lens of, our fight or flight response, which is, a primal human reaction to perceived threats rooted in our biology. And in community organizing, it serves as a useful metaphor for how individuals and groups respond to systemic challenges. When communities are faced with threats like displacement, gentrification, or imposition of development plans without their consent, their reactions often reflect either confrontation, so fight, or withdrawal, flight. These instinctual responses are especially relevant in organizing around land use, urban development, community benefits, social procurement, areas where power dynamics, rapid change, and technological disruption does collide. And so for me, an alternative is strategic adaptation. So, which is grounded in education, collective visioning, digital tools, and with this, communities can not only survive change, but they can actually lead it. So embracing technological change, it doesn't mean adapting it blindly. It means shaping its role in ways that serve communities' needs and values. AI tools can adapt to serve community needs, such as mapping displacement patterns, forecasting impacts of development decisions, and other kinds of organizing work. So we need to move beyond resistance to shaping alternatives, and I think that's how we need to kind of stand in the face of technological change.
Thank you, Rosemary. So we're using AI in every aspect of construction. I never thought about the virtual reality piece for the young, particularly for the younger folks that are coming into the trades, but it seems to be, thinking about it, a perfect entry into it. You can see how, the why, the where, all through virtual reality. So yes, very, very good. Well, I think in many cases, what workers want is to ensure that their jobs are not taken over by AI and that their concerns are addressed when making the technological changes. I mentioned before in a earlier conversation, the International Labor Organization and a number of the global central labor bodies are looking at the future of work, have all indicated that transparency is important. Public consultations is also one of the things that they would like to see governments and employers in terms of utilizing those public consultations and worker consultations when they're setting timelines regarding the implementation of AI. Ensuring that workers are at the table from the beginning of the discussions in terms of how to implement before we see the changes actually taking place in the world of work, especially when it comes to looking at the real risks and harms that it may cause to workers. And I think when that is done, that it helps to demystify a little bit. Labor is also talking about the need for human connections, the right for human review, the right to human contact, protection against discrimination and unfairness, including the right to disconnect, ensuring that everyone understands the technology, understands what the technology is, what it does, and how it can impact what it can do, what it can't do, who controls the data, and other ethical guidelines when it comes to AI. All of those things are things that Ahi, Daisy, Rosemary, you all mentioned in your responses. So Daisy, with AI being used in hiring, they use it in hiring, performance tracking, workplace automation. How is this reshaping those job roles?
A number of things. First of all, there are some AI-driven tools that can scan thousands of resumes in seconds. That is efficient for employers, But it also means job seekers need to understand how to optimize their application for AI screening. So keywords, formatting, and clarity really matters. Job seekers can actually put their resumes and the job posting into AI and use prompt engineering, as A mentioned earlier, to create a document that aligns closely to the job that they're applying for. However, remember, you cannot rely totally on AI. If AI does not, if especially if you're using whichever the tools for that matter, they will they will hallucinate if they don't see the information that they're looking for. What that means is that the human element will forever be at the forefront. So don't depend on AI to say, oh, it's going to create this fantastic resume for me and I'm going to get the interview and then get the job. No. So a lot of training is going to be involved. Like I said, the human element is going to be key. You need to understand, you need to be flexible, you need to be adaptable, and all of that. The other thing too is that upskilling is no longer optional. Like it is essential. And to stay relevant, professionals need to build AI literacy. And we're going to talk about, Rosemary spoke about AI literacy as well as AE. And what that does, it strengthens your critical thinking. Again, it's a human part of it. And people need to be able to adapt as the job roles evolve. So it might sound as if, well, AI is going to do all these miraculous things for me. No, it works in tandem with that. And the other thing I would say is that as AI evolves, entirely new career paths are being created. And job seekers, again, will have to take advantage of that. I don't know if later on we're going to be talking about the ethical parts of it, but I hope we do, because that again is going to be a big part. But for me personally, well, for just to answer the question, is that we need to move away from the fear of job loss and move towards how much can I learn and how can I use these different tools to enhance my career path.
Thank you, Daisy. Ehi, how do you see the traditional roles evolving? You touched on it a little bit in your the response to the first question, but how do you see those traditional roles evolving in response to the adoption of AI?
Yeah, thank you very much, Marie. Um, Before I go into that, I want to paraphrase by saying that in this ever-changing world of work, it's really important for us as professionals, as employees, to start thinking about our jobs as series of value creation opportunities. So when
Mhm.
we think about it from that perspective, it allows us to be more flexible and open to the changes that these technologies will bring. Because the truth is, there's always going to be one new technology or the other. Today it's AI. In a few years, it's going to be quantum, and that's going to create a whole new thing that, like, we're not talking about it a lot right now, but in a few years, that's going to be the next phase that everybody's going to be scrambling to figure out what else should we be doing. But then to answer the question, really, it's the fact that jobs are becoming more hybrid. Previously, you'd hear someone say, oh, that is not within my job description. Oh, my job is just customer service, answer the phone and that's it. But no, that's not, like, job roles are changing, which then means that if we already have an AI tool that's maybe supporting with customer service as an example, then you as a customer service specialist, you would need to go beyond just reading templates and answering those questions to be able to understand data, understand the analysis of that data, be able to synthesize new ideas of how the company or the team can better solve customer problems. These three things that I just mentioned are what business analysts do. What that then tells you is if I'm currently a customer service person, I have transferable skills to become a business analyst. So essentially, as AI tools develop, as AI tools are increasing efficiency, people need to get comfortable with big picture thinking, get comfortable with systems thinking, think in terms of systems, not just, oh, this is my job role and that's all I'm doing. Value that the company is looking to
Yeah.
create across different levels. So that's one. So like Daisy said, continuous learning is going to be important. If you're a
Yeah.
marketer or you social media manager, you can't say, oh, my role is just creating posts. AI can do that now. But then how do you go beyond just creating social media posts to user experience, understanding how users engage with whatever product? How do you do user experience design? How do you do user research? How do you learn to build software tools in a matter of hours and days, even when you don't have coding skills? Because the truth is, with AI, you can literally go in there, describe what you want to do using a tool like Lovable, Replit, describe the product, describe the solution you're trying to create, and it will write the code for you. But then it relies on your understanding of the problem that the individual is facing or that that segment of customers is facing to be able to build what's needed. Coming back to what I said earlier, prompt engineering is something everybody would need to be able to do. Human empathy and being able to connect with people, understand their day-to-day lives, the problems that they encounter, and how you can translate that into value that your company or your employer can be creating. And now you find yourself pitching ideas of product solutions to your company, and your leaders are going to start looking at you differently. Like, oh, this person is not just a
Mhm.
branch advisor or a customer service advisor, because you're looking at the data and you're taking it one step further to say this is how it fits into our own context of what we do. So essentially, there's not like it's almost like a partnership model, right? There needs to be a human in that system that helps us keep making sure that the tools are being useful for humans, almost like a co-pilot to the AI tool. So that those are some of the adaptations that I'm seeing.
You can see it happening in supermarkets or places that have self checkouts. When it first started happening and the changes first came in, you would see one person that would be helping, the lineup of people. Now you're seeing two and three and four people who have been hired to assist, which means that they have to know all the quirks of that particular machine because they're the ones that have to do the troubleshooting and fix it for the customer. So yeah, I see it happening on all levels. Rosemary, let me go to you now and just ask, what are some of the labor implications for integrating the use of AI in construction?
Okay, so in my first answer, I really talked about just the wonderful benefits, the fact that we really need to embrace this. Just like really emphasizing that technology is here to stay, and it's a good thing that our young people have kind of grown up with technology, so their adaptation of it, I
Mhm.
think, would become more easier, which is going to really be necessary. Because if we think again now in the context of construction, especially when we talk about manual labor, and someone who is a laborer or a carpenter, an iron worker, it takes a lot of kind of like physical work. Many of our young people are getting into construction right out of high school, and so they it, more and more for sure are definitely getting into to college and universities, because we're recognizing that in construction, the situation is changing, where we need skilled workers. We need workers that have brain as well as brawn, and so they our construction workers of today really have to look at how they are upskilling themselves to be able to take advantage of technology to be able to perform the work, because it's no longer, you cannot get away with just thinking that construction is all about just the physical and the manual labor. So if our young people are already being, facing exclusions on the construction site today, and as we move into even more adaptation of technology in the construction industry, what we're going to see is that we're going to continue having that gap, right? And so we're going to see more job displacements for our people, and also a reduction of demand for their labor. So it's going to be really important that we're focused on upskilling and educating around digital and technological skills from our young people. And that's why we focus on these kinds of training programs in what we offer here at the Toronto Community Benefits Network in our Next Gen Builders, pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, and mentoring programs. And so, we really have to make sure that we're educating the next generation of builders. The other thing that we're seeing, again, with technology being more incorporated, is just the increased surveillance of our peoples and our communities. And Black and Brown people, just in the context of today's society, we face more scrutiny by law enforcement and the system in general. And so we remember not too long ago when there was a big proposal, a grant proposal for sidewalk labs, as this new digital era that the city was looking to basically create an entire redevelopment area that was going to be totally digital and transformed. And it called for things like, once you walk onto that kind of sidewalk or into that little neighborhood, it would be like a city in a city. It would have its own, it would have drones, it would have, monitoring and tracking as soon as you enter that space, from what you purchase to where you live to, how you play, and all of that kind of beautiful, concepts. And people were just really not ready for that yet, because we hadn't yet talked about what the data and privacy issues were going to be, and who was going to own all of that data. So we have to really be kind of, cognizant of some of the risks that we face as a society, and really think about that in advance and make sure that we're getting ahead of the technology with policies and procedures, and that we're protecting communities' interests and those who are going to be, or have often been historically, some of the most marginalized and excluded. Right. And so, as we're thinking about, urban planning and development, these are the kinds of things that we also need to pay attention to, over and above, just the look and feel and design of our buildings, and, and the kind of labor or social procurement that we're going to be having from these projects. We also have to think about, data and technology. What else can I say in terms of labor? If obviously we are not able to kind of embrace the technology and kind of get with the advancement, we're going to continue to see that there's going to be this wage inequality and polarization that will continue to exist. And we know that our communities, especially in our Black and Brown communities, we are often those who are the first to feel the brunt of the burden of any kind of advancement, whether it is in technology or other. And so we're going to really have to be very conscious of that, and making sure that that we're creating those policies and procedures that are going to keep communities' needs at the forefront.
Correct.
So yeah, so that's kind of some of the work that we're doing within our network. We're not kind of, being, scared away by it, but we want to kind of get out front of it and make sure that we're being strategic in our approach.
So I just want to go into the chat for a second. Marjorie Taylor talks about it's continuous learning. No one is resting on their laurels. So all three of you talked about the importance of that continuous learning. But I also want to go back to something that Daisy had indicated around AI taking a look at resumes, and if they don't see things that they want, they just move on. And Donna had indicated AI similar to the human being who has problems pronouncing someone's last name, and so they just move on to the next candidate. Is that sort of the same, a similar way of looking at it, or an easier way of describing what could happen? Daisy?
AI wouldn't necessarily be looking at the name per se, it would be looking for the skills.
No, I understand, but she was making an analogy, a comparison, actually,
Oh,
to say
okay.
it's like a human being who takes a look at something and doesn't, can't understand something. And so because they can't understand, they just move on to the next.
Yes. Well, okay, so let me look at it from this perspective. And I think this might answer another question somebody had about bias.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, bias in AI is a real concern, especially when it comes to hiring, promotions, and access to opportunities. And so we have to be proactive in both understanding the risks and taking steps to address them at multiple levels. I'm not sure if this is going to answer the particular question, but it boils down to, as Rosemary was saying, about things that Black and brown people experience. So we have to think in terms of how can we prevent or respond to AI biases? And I would say, number one, we need to educate ourselves and others, as I said, as I alluded to earlier. So understand how AI works. Know that AI models learn from information that we put in. They have the historical data, which by its very nature contains human bias.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stay informed. Keep up with research about anything about bias and ethical AI practices, and then raise awareness, advocate for bias training for teams using or affected by AI systems. And then the second piece is ask the right questions. Who designed the AI system? So you need to consider the diversity of the development team. Did it include Black and brown people? The next question would be, what data was used to train it? Again, the information that we input can reflect social inequities. And then the third piece would be, what outcomes does it prioritize? And this is a question around fairness and transparency, where fairness and transparency parts of the design. So we need to understand those aspects of it first, and knowing that yes, biases are going to be there, and probably biases in terms of the name. If it's not John Brown, then
Right.
because it was somebody like John Brown who developed this system, well, he, whether or not John Brown is qualified, it could be selected. On the other hand, if they have, a different name, probably it doesn't come up. So we have to think that bias is there throughout, because it's human beings who develop the
Right.
system
That's right.
anyway. And that's why it's very important for us as Black and brown people to make sure we know what's happening, make sure we are learning. And I will always think in terms of upskilling, right? Embracing, because that's the only way you can keep ahead of of this AI technology. And I was at a conference last week, and the gentleman said, he said, today is the worst that AI could get, which means every day there are going to be changes, and so we have to keep up with it, because it's not going back.
It speaks to, not just with AI, but with everything. We have to make sure we're at the table. Ahi, I saw your comment as well. We have to make sure we're at the table at the beginning of the process, not
Absolutely.
as an add-on, not, we've already developed this program. Now we want you to take a look at it and make sure that, it's not biased or whatever. No, we need to be there at the very beginning. And I feel encouraged and hopeful because there are people like Ehi, like you, Daisy, like Rosemary, like others who are out there who have taken on this challenge and are doing amazing work with the AI platforms. So, I think we're in good hands, but we have to make sure that we are following up, we're following through, and we are there and doing that lifelong continuous learning. To go straight into Ahi. I want to come back. I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about the ethical concerns. But I have a couple more questions that I want to get to you. Ahi, how can professionals build resilience and adaptability in a workforce that's constantly shifting? As Daisy just said, every single day there's something changing with respect to artificial intelligence and AI.
Yeah, of course, that's something that needs to be top of mind for all of us. And one thing I always tell mentees and clients, or that come to me when it comes to their career, is that change is not necessarily always a threat. If you're willing to learn, grow, and evolve, because every wave of change is going to bring about new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the people that get ahead of the change. As you're hearing about it, Daisy mentioned staying informed, lifelong learning, continuous learning. As you're hearing about it, don't be a bystander. Don't be like, oh yeah, these tech people, they've come again, everything is tech, tech, tech. No, be curious, right? Be curious, try to understand what exactly is artificial intelligence. How does it apply? What does it mean? What does it mean across all levels? And I'm speaking not just, I'm glad that Rosemary is here to kind of also give us context from the
Mm,
trades side of things, because
Mm-hmm.
as of today, AI is disrupting the professional, formal, white collar kind of jobs. But there's still opportunities for our colleagues in the trade skills to also start understanding, what does AI truly mean? What can it do? How can I start learning about it, so that once it starts trickling down over the years, it might still be a while, I am ready. So it's first that growth mindset, right? Like having that mindset to be willing to learn. And then second is, we all need to learn to build emotional and mental resilience. As much as technical or technological capability is important, you also need that mental strength and stability to be able to manage the stress that's going to come with the change, to manage the disruption that's going to come with the change, the uncertainty, the ambiguity that's going to come with it. And the only way you can do that is having knowledge to understand what the situation is, try to understand what your current baseline is. And I mentioned this on the backstage. I wish I had all of the achievements that I've gotten, that all the achievements I've had over the last 15, 20 years of my career. I wish there was an archive that was tracking them for me. But we don't have that, right? Remember, AI is going to refer back to historical data to start thinking about, okay, what patterns are there that it's going to learn. We need that for our own personal uses. So, how can you start leveraging AI tools to track your skill sets, to track your achievements, so that it will start identifying the patterns from your personal life, from your work life, from your community life, and it can now tell you what makes you really unique in your own job role. And that translates into the opportunities that you can now start to see that, oh, I didn't know I had this. Oh, I didn't know because I'm really good at drumming or dancing or being a singer or like whatever other informal skill that you have, there is a transferable skill that can translate into the workplace. And again, I can't say this enough. It's really important to stay informed. There's knowledge everywhere. There are newsletters, there are podcasts, there are YouTube videos. There are lots of people that have taken it upon themselves to share their knowledge. Stay informed, learn about them, read about them, engage in conversations, ask questions. Like gone are the days when people will say, oh, I go to a networking event, I don't know what to talk about. What? There's so much to talk about, like so many questions to ask professionals and experts who come to these events. So stay informed and be flexible. Be flexible to try out how else can I be creating value in my role? How else can I create value based off of what I'm really good at? And again, that self reflection of what am I really good at? And how does that translate into the value that people are looking to pay for or that employers are looking to pay for? And
Mhm.
lastly, even though most of us are employees, don't just think about an employee as, oh, I do my work and I get paid a salary. Think of yourself as a problem solver. Can you start building solutions on the side? Because these days I feel like everybody should be building something, because you have very unique insights based off of the fields that you're in, based off of the community, the environment that you're in. And AI has made it's almost leveling the playing ground for everybody. You don't have to go to computer school or be a computer science graduate to be able to build a solution. Find a solution and start thinking about how to build it and how to solve it. And the good thing that does for you is that it increases your value to your employer, because now you're going to be learning skills that you can now bring into the workplace. You start developing new perspectives. When you come to the table to speak, people will start wondering, wow, this person knows so much. But that's because you're experimenting and disrupting yourself on the side, outside of work, and bringing it back into the workplace. And that just increases your value like crazy. I hope that helps to those who are listening.
It does, Ahi. It does. Like I have so many questions. We're only an hour, but I have so many questions. Um, Daisy, I saw you trying to raise your hand, but I wanna, before I come to you, I wanna go to Rosemary because I wanna ask her what other ways is are they using artificial intelligence in construction, and what is the future potential? And then Daisy, I'll come back to you because I want there's part of what Ahi said that I want you to comment on.
So I want to talk about both construction and community organizing work. I know that in construction, what we're seeing more and more is in the safety space, the safety arena, there's a lot of use, for AI and virtual reality. We just had our Build Green Career Fair on February 26th and, had what was it, NORCAT, who is a training and safety provider, as well as Skills Canada come out with their trucks, which had some, wonderful displays of the kinds of tools that they're using in the industry right now to be able to provide training to not just new entrants, but also the actual workers. So health and safety training is really being enhanced in really incredible ways. They were able to demonstrate like a fire drill. So, inside of a closed, I guess, like a modular truck, they were able to basically take people through a process of identifying the hazard, and basically addressing the issues right on the spot, learning how to use the actual, the what the fire panels, right? Having the alarm ring, do the drill to kind of take people from step by step through the process, and even be able to save a life while doing that. And, that kind of a training would have normally taken, a job site, could have disrupted, activities that are happening, on a real job site where, as you know, time and money. But if they're able to take that outside of the actual workspace, onto and like in a bubble safe zone, where they can, teach groups of people in a continuous kind of a way over and over and over, without actually putting them in a real life, kind of emergency situation. They're able to experience it right there on the spot. So I know that safety, and safety, and prevention of worksite accidents and so forth is a big way for how virtual reality and AI is being used. Another area that I see that is happening is modular building. So, right now we're in a crisis for affordable housing, right? All across Canada, we need, places to live, and we need to be able to build it in a way where we're getting some efficiencies in terms of saving money, saving time, saving material and resources. So imagine being able to use technology to kind of design and structure those buildings, and to like really pull out all the efficiencies that you can get, and to be able to build things off-site and basically truck them in and basically stack them. The incredible amounts of money and material and time that this can save. This is something that the industry is moving towards in a really meaningful way. And instead of $500,000 homes, they're going to be able to bring that cost down quite significantly. The other ways, in terms of, like if I think about our community organizing work, AI has really been useful in terms of the monitoring, tracking, and evaluation that we need to do. So, for example, for every community benefits project, we require that the general contractor and the unions and the different partners look at, what are the deliverables that were expected and how those deliverables are being met over time. And so that takes, survey and automation of, sending out emails and collecting feedback. This kind of creates a lot of data. And, that data just sits there in our system year over year. And sometimes we just don't have the resources in community to be able to get a whole research grant or whatever from, the universities or whatever to come in and to kind of assess all of that information for us. Just the other day, I was able to pull over 300 responses from our survey about one of our programs. And basically, I put all of that in ChatGPT. And it was absolutely amazing. It came back with a beautiful analysis of data that we had been collecting for, for a while in that particular program. And we were able to use that to actually generate a beautiful report so that the funder can really understand what has been the impact of the program. And so can you imagine the amount of time and just, the resources that it would have taken to be able to have staff to do that? And it's not like I would have had more staff to be able to work on it. So just realistically speaking, it's not replacing staff. We didn't have the dollars anyways. But with the existing resources that we had in place, kind of, using the AI function, just a simple ChatGPT was able to help us to kind of improve, our processes and our reporting processes in a significant way for us. So there's just, so many good uses of this. Now, we understand that there are risks. How do we make sure that we're creating balance here?
And I'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that, as it's a question that I want to ask all of you. But before we go there, you talked about solution based. If everybody who bitched and complained, not just at work, but in community in general, particularly our community, if you came with that bitching and complaining with one solution or a list of solutions, think about how much better we would be. Daisy, I saw your head go up, but I want you to comment on what you wanted to say when he was speaking, but also to talk about what is it that professionals need to do to remain competitive. And we talked a little bit about that in terms of lifelong learning, et cetera, but I want you to delve into that a little bit more.
Okay. First of all, I don't know how my hand got up because I I really didn't raise my hand. But and I'll answer your question after this. But this particular piece is so important that you didn't ask me the question, but it is so important that I have to talk about it. And it's from the job seeker's perspective, and it's all about online security risk in the AI-driven job market.
If you're gonna touch on your ethical concerns, hold that thought. But if you're going to go beyond that, then go ahead.
Okay, so let me, before I even get to the ethical piece, really, it's more about the cyber threats that we face, the deep fake scams and automated phishing and all of that. So I think I can quickly just give you some quick points on that, and don't even go into the ethical piece yet. But we have seen AI generated scams. Like, I see that so often. It could be deep fake videos of people, even this week, actually, somebody was saying he was interviewing somebody who was an AI person,
Mm-hmm.
because the person had studied the interview questions and all of that. But then the interviewer said to him, okay, raise your right hand. Well, of course, the avatar couldn't raise the hand. So he realized that, what was happening. But from the the job seeker's perspective, you need to be very cautious. If a job offer sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So verify company details, check the recruiter profiles, and never share your sensitive information without confirmation. And while I'm talking about sensitive information, even though I use ChatGPT and Claude and all the others fairly often, I never put my personal information there, not even my name. So you have to be careful. And the other piece too, in terms of the job seeker, is that we know that many companies use AI to screen job applications, but candidates rarely know how their data is stored or used. So we need more, and I think we all touched on, transparency from employers. How long is the data going to be stored? Who has access to it, and so on. And lastly, I wanted to mention, because I spoke earlier about people who are making sure that people like us are developing, are involved in the AI process. There are two women that I follow. One is Joy Bolamwini, and I hope I'm not cutting up her name. She's founder of the Algorithmic Justice League. And what she has done, she has exposed racial and gender bias in commercial AI systems through her Gender Shades project. And the other woman is Dr. Timnit Gebru, and she used to work, I think, with Google, and they had a falling out. But she's a leading AI ethics researcher who has been instrumental in highlighting bias in AI systems. So we have people, and there are others, but these two are two main ones that we can always connect with. Well, at least learn about what they're doing in terms of helping with bias. Now, I don't know if I have time to answer that up.
Go ahead, Daisy. And I'm also going to ask if you could put those two names in the chat
Yes,
for.
I will put them. I'll put them there. So please remind me of what is it. It was so important for me to talk about the deep fake when it comes to job application that I think I forgot.
Other than what we've talked about, it could be that we've talked about all of it, but other than what we've talked about in terms of lifelong learning, et cetera, what do professionals need to do to stay competitive in this market?
So first of all, they should realize that AI will not replace humans, but those who know how to work with AI will replace those who don't. The real challenge is really how people how we prepare workers or how people prepare to to exist in the AI space. And again, I will emphasize learning. Continuous learning is going to be a mantra that we all take with us because, as I said, AI isn't going any place. And I think and just be curious, be open to what's happening, what talk to people who are, as I said earlier, talk to people who are involved, who know a little bit more, and learn from them. And like Rosemary was talking about, her industry. Well, that's a whole new world for me because you think in terms of the job and the job application and the job seekers and so on, but hardly would I be thinking of the depth to what Rosemary was talking about in terms of construction. So my point would be curious, be ready to learn, ask questions, and have an open mind.
Thank you, Daisy. Just before I get to the last question, Ahi, can you also talk a little bit about or give us a little bit of information and probably put it in the chat about the intergenerational teachings that you mentioned earlier, because I think that is key. We all know as we get older, these things become a little bit blur for us. It's difficult for us to keep in the loop when on new technology and other things. But if we have a young person that's there, that's able to help us, that's able to teach, it actually helps. I mean, grandchildren teaching grandparents, etc. It definitely cuts the difficulty in the task.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put it in the chat. It's a program that we run 3 times a year where we try to teach um, seniors and older adults technology, how to use different technologies, and just get them more. Because the truth is, I think someone put it in the chat, with the advancement in technology, we're having longer life expectancy, and our parents, as older siblings, they are able to work longer than the typical 60, 65 years of age. But now we need to help them bridge that comfort with technology so that they can still have like meaningful financial well-being even in that age group. So that's really the focus of that program. So I'll leave it in the chat and the links to join as well.
Perfect. Perfect. So back to the ethical concerns. We know that there are a lot of ethical concerns. I mean, most recently we heard about 23andMe and the issues they're now facing, having people's DNA and people's data, and we don't know where that is. It could be in cyberspace somewhere. Nobody knows the ability of governments, et cetera, to track you. There are concerns over that. So to everyone, what are the precautions that you believe need to be taken when it comes to the use of AI? And Daisy, I'm going to begin with you.
Um, I think it's just be aware of the information that you're putting out there on yourself. And again, ask questions. If your employer is asking you for to engage in, aspects of, the AI and all of that. Ask a question, how will you be using this information that I'm giving to you? How long will it be stored? Who will have access to it? And the other piece that I would say is, keep in mind that these AI is a tool. The key is to use it responsibly. You know, both in, and especially from the employer's perspective, is use it both in hiring and in protecting your employee right. So I think that's what I would add. Nothing else is coming up based on, because we have all kind of touched on a lot of it before. You're on mute,
Whoever,
Rosemary.
whoever wants to share information, Ehi, you want to go next?
Oh, what was the question again? Sorry.
The ethical concerns. What are the precautions that you would suggest when it comes to the use of AI? Precautions that will help people in general.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Daisy had mentioned earlier. As a job seeker, you need to be very mindful of where you submit your information to, right? So, if you're applying to a job, for example, and then they've hidden some questions that are very sensitive as part of the job application, you should be alert to that, because that's like, the truth is, as every industry is being advanced by AI, scammers are also being advanced by AI. So the way we are learning about AI and trying to do good with it, they are also learning about AI and trying to do the most wicked things that they can do with it. So it behoves on us to be extra vigilant. So if there's a job application that you're filling in and you suddenly see questions around, oh, what's your social insurance number? Nope, that shouldn't be there. Even in your resume, there's no reason for you to have your full address on your resume. It's not needed. The city and the state is enough information, right? If maybe your phone number, your LinkedIn profile, okay. And then I have different email addresses that I use for different things. So, for example, if I'm because I love to subscribe to a lot of newsletters, I have a dedicated email address that I use to subscribe to every newsletter that I want to subscribe to. And then I have a separate email address that I use for very serious and formal stuff, that, sensitive stuff will come to that email. For me, those are just one of the things that I do to kind of make sure that I'm protecting myself and limiting the kind of information that I put on different platforms. And then I also like to put a word of caution, because I've seen this when candidates are trying to be smart when they're applying to job. Lying on your resume is never a good thing, right? Because, and for some people it's not intentional, like Daisy alluded to it. You take your resume, you put it in chat gpt, you take the job description, you put it in chat gpt, and you ask it to create a resume for you. It will create a resume that might ignore the fact that you don't necessarily have those achievements that it has put together for you. And then I had I saw a video where someone got into an interview and then they started asking them questions about the resume, and they're like, that was not on my resume, but it was actually there. You could tell that that person used
Yeah.
AI to create the resume. So you just like apply, like let's not become lazy because AI is kind of making our jobs better and easier. You still need to, apply yourself, look at what the output is giving, tweak it, prompt it to actually reflect the correct version of what you want people to know and show about yourself. But yeah.
Before we go to you, Rosemary, just Ahi and Daisy, do you have anything to add? Michelle has put in the chat, what do you have to say about intellectual property rights for AI generated content and products? You may not have a comment, but if you have any comments on that, that would be great. And Rosemary, we could go to you.
Yes, I think that's going to be very important in terms of copyrights. One is that Well, I think the New York Times has already sued OpenAI, which is the parent company for ChatGPT. So we have to be careful with that. The second piece is um even in I was discussing a matter with someone regarding a book that I'm probably going to be writing. And when we checked with Amazon, they are now saying that they're being very careful about copyright and plagiarism and all of that because we are in the era of AI and people are actually suing, like suing them for some things that they have done. And just the third piece is that I know a lady right here in Brampton who contributed to a book
Mm.
and they didn't the woman who was the lead person on it, she did not agree that the book should have been well, no, one person did not agree that the book should have been put on Amazon for sale and all of that. And she was ready to sue the lady. They had to take it off. They had to take the book off Amazon, and no, it cannot be put there. So at some point, copyright issues are gonna come up. So we have to be careful. And that's why, again, use AI as a tool, but use your brain, use critical thinking skills to get to carve to create the stuff that's uniquely you.
Thank you for that, Rosemary.
Yeah, those are some really serious stuff. For us at TCBN, and I would say as an employer and as someone who also works with Black youth and other underrepresented peoples, the main thing that comes to mind in terms of risks are the I would say privacy concerns, and as well as increased surveillance that we're seeing, and now being amplified even more with AI, face recognition. Just see as we move. So, for example, at TCBN. During COVID, before COVID, we were, full time, 5 days a week at the office, doing work. And COVID really, I think, facilitated the opportunity, if you want to call it that, for being able to work from home, work at a distance. And we needed to come up with ways for how we ensure that performance and productivity still kind of stayed up to par, and that the work was actually happening, that staff and the service that we promised to our funders are actually kind of taking place. So that really entailed a lot of trust building with the team, despite having to develop ways in which we communicate from a distance with staff. And so I know early in those days, and there's always still that concern that even with our database system, we're able to see when staff are using the system or not. We are very, very much concerned, and also a strong advocate for monitoring, tracking, and evaluation of demographics and the outcomes for the community benefits agreement, which means we need demographic information, we need age, we need postal codes and all of that kind of good stuff in order to understand that the work is happening as intended through community benefits. So there are a lot of issues that we do grapple with, as it relates to privacy of our staff as they're working, oftentimes 2 days at home, 3 days at work, staff privacy in face of the public as they're working with the public and they're working with participants, participants' privacy as they're giving us information related to finding work. Making sure to collect only the most basic information that is needed, making sure that we're not sending this information by email, making sure that there is strong passwords. Passwords are being changed on a regular basis. So privacy issues become really something that we always are very concerned about at work. And over surveillance of staff and their performance and their productivity and so forth, right? It's not easy to build trust in a workplace where you're constantly being monitored in terms of your performance. And so it creates stress for staff and and distrust among the workers, right? So we have to be really conscious of that kind of stuff. And so, as an individual and as an employer, these are all concerns that we have to come up with a balanced approach that is taking into consideration, all of the risks and the needs that we have.
Thank you, Rosemary. Ahi, do you have anything to add? And I'm being asked in the chat if you could please share your intergenerational the program in the actual chat.
Yes. Nothing else to add. I think Rosemary and Daisy have covered various really interesting and very important aspects of how we make sure that we're staying secure and just being aware, like heightened awareness. Like even I had to message my mom recently. I'm like, if anybody sends you a video recording that says it's Ehi and Ehi is in this situation, call me directly on my number
Yeah.
before you respond, right? So it's not just for us to be aware of these things as it relates to our jobs, it's also to enlighten members of our families as to how these things could impact them. So I could imagine if my mom got a video saying I was in danger, she's going to be really worried and she would likely want to take action. But again, AI can create those super hyper realistic videos, and we need to make sure people are aware, our families are aware, and just have those measures in place to protect them, protect us. And yeah, I think that's all I have to.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, well, we have come to the end. I told you guys it would go so quickly, and you would think you didn't have enough time. I want to thank all of you for sharing, particularly those who are joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and on our Zoom platform. Thank you all for sharing your time with us. We know that you could have been doing something else, but you joined us to hear this conversation. I didn't even have to remind anybody to put questions in the chat. They were just coming. I want to thank our panelists. There's so much that I learned today. Thank you all very, very much for everything that you shared. And we may need to do a part 2 on this one. I want to thank the tech support that's in the background. And please remember, as Black women throughout all of the generations, we have persevered. We have pushed forward. We've done it without complaining, and we'll continue to provide leadership, strength, and guidance in every single realm. And this one is no different. I want to thank all of our sponsors for these chats: UBC Build, TD Bank, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario. Please, please, please join us for the next Fireside Chat on April 27th. Just let me just check the chat. I saw something coming in. From Daisy. Thank you. Concluding thoughts. AI and online security are shaping the future of our work. Our role as professionals is to stay informed, upskill, and advocate for ethical AI use in our workplace. Daisy, I'm copying it and putting it to in the full chat for everyone. Um, we should focus on harnessing its potential while ensuring security and fairness for all. And that is definitely something that we all need to remember. So Let me say again, please join us for the next Fireside Chat on April 27th, where sports and equity will be the topic of discussion. We know that for decades, women athletes have been paid much less than men. Female sportscasters have been hard to come by, and the overall treatment has been extremely inequitable. Will this change, and will equity be achieved in the near future? Please register and encourage your friends and family to join us for this very timely discussion. All of our fireside chats, just a reminder, every last one of our fireside chats are live streamed and are available on our YouTube channel. I want to wish everyone a great rest of the day. Thank you all.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 woman growing strong. 100 woman where you belong. You stood